What's going on, y'all? I'm Killer Mitchell, and this is Black History for Youngsters. We're gonna have some fun today, y'all. We talking about redlining. What is it? Redlining is the segregation of races by living spaces in cities and states. Some history about it. During the Great Depression, FDR signed a New Deal, a series of programs to help the U.S. people. Out of the New Deal came the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, and the HOLC, the Homeowners Loan Corporation. The HOLC let people know what type of neighborhood their neighborhood would be based on the types of people that already lived in that neighborhood. This right here is where redlining comes from. The FHA made colorful maps. No, not that map. There we go. The FHA made colorful maps for the biggest cities in America and broke them down into 4 areas. The red areas were called hazardous. This is where a lot of the black and minority people live. The yellow areas were called definitely declining. These areas were close to where the red areas were. The blue areas were called still desirable, meaning they were a little further from the red areas. And the green areas were deemed the best areas, because they were the furthest from the red area. So the closer your area was to the black or minority area, the lower the property value of your home was if you were white. Fun fact, the word slum that we call the hood comes from this period of time because the HOLC called the areas where black and minority people stayed the slums. A white neighborhood only received the green color if restrictive covenants were already in place in that neighborhood. Now, a restrictive covenant was a contract signed by the white property owners saying that they will only sell their property to another white person. Racist, right? I know. The reason for this, though, was because during that time, having a black person living in your white neighborhood brought the value of your property down. And nobody wanted the value of their property to decrease, so they wanted black people out of their neighborhoods. Racism. These racial covenants were about shutting out black people from good property as much as they were about the enrichment of white people. Racial covenants and redlining enrich white people in different ways, but the ones we'll focus on today are wealth, schools, and health. Wealth. White people were able to pass down property from generation to generation, which created wealth in their families over a period of time. Black people in the red areas lived in government housing, rented property that wasn't theirs, or they had houses and property that wasn't really valued by the racist government. So they wasn't able to pass down wealth to their kids because rented property isn't yours. And if your property isn't valued by the government, then your wealth doesn't really increase at all. This created generations of black people that had to get it out the mud without prior family wealth. This is a big factor that over time created a racial wealth gap. Schools and health. Good schools, hospitals, and grocery stores can be credited to the wealth of the white neighborhoods, which in some part came from property taxes. Property taxes is money that people who own land and houses pay to the government that in turn helps their communities to flourish. Because of this, schools and hospitals that were in white communities received more money and got more of what they needed to serve the white people that were in their community. Grocery stores also had fresher food, and they were more conveniently located in white communities as well because of the wealth of the communities. Now, I don't really have to say it, but we know that the opposite was true in the communities that had darker skinned people like us. What happened to redlining? Redlining was demolished in 1968. So if we take 2022, which is the year that we in now, minus 1968, we'll get 54. So that means that if anybody in your family is older than 54, they may be able to tell you personally about redlining practices during that time. But some of the redlining practices have seen being practiced as late as 2015. That's real sad. Redlining has had a lasting impact on a drastic wealth gap and a gap between the affluence of communities between white people and black people. The positive. Although things looked bleak during this time, there were still positives. In the mid-1950s, the Tizen-built homes were built by Archie Givens, a black man, and Edward Tilson, a Jewish man. They said anybody could own homes in their newly built neighborhood. neighborhood, no matter what the color of the person was. This was big because even though some white people didn't want black people in their communities, Givens and Tilson did not try to shut white people out of their newly built community. They welcomed everybody. These two paved the way for all colors of people to live together in one community, kind of like we do today. These heroes helped black people to start owning better property and houses, and they helped to create black wealth. Hands on. If you need the extra parents, ask them to use the computer, but afterwards look and see if redlining went on where you live. And if it did, ask your parents to take you on a little field trip around your area and see if y'all can still notice the impact of redlining in your city today. Well, y'all, that was redlining. Stay tuned to see what we drop next week.